No one noticed the old man at first, not until the sound of a sharp slap cracked through the showroom like a gunshot. Conversations froze. Phones stopped recording. And in that one brutal second, a quiet morning at Whitmore Luxury Motors turned into a moment no one inside would ever forget. The old man's name was Edgar Holloway, and the salesman who raised his hand was Trent Caldwell. Edgar had walked into the showroom slowly, his back slightly bent, his shoes worn thin at the heels. He didn't look like someone who belonged among the polished marble floors, the glass walls, and the $1,000,000 cars shining under white lights. His jacket was old but clean, his hands rough, his eyes tired yet alert. He stood near the entrance for a moment, as if gathering courage, then took a careful step inside. Trent noticed him immediately and rolled his eyes. Trent Caldwell was young, sharp-jawed, confident, and dressed in a tailored suit that cost more than Edgar's monthly pension. He was the top salesman in the building, known for closing high-value deals and for having very little patience. When Edgar approached a silver executive sedan and gently ran his fingers along the door, Trent sighed loudly and walked over. "Sir," Trent said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "these vehicles start at 6 figures. Are you sure you're in the right place?" Edgar looked up, startled, but smiled politely. "Yes, son. I was hoping to ask a few questions." Trent glanced at Edgar's shoes, then at his jacket, then back at his face. "We're very busy today," he replied. "Maybe try the used car lot down the street." A few customers nearby exchanged glances. Edgar nodded slowly. "I understand," he said softly. "I don't need much time." He opened his mouth to speak again, but Trent cut him off. "Look, I don't mean to be rude, but this car alone costs more than most houses. You touching it makes people uncomfortable." Edgar withdrew his hand immediately. "I apologize. I didn't mean any harm. That should have been the end of it." But something in Edgar's calm tone irritated Trent. Maybe it was the dignity, maybe it was the way the old man didn't look ashamed. Trent stepped closer. "Sir, I asked you to leave." Edgar hesitated. "May I just sit for a moment?" "My legs—" Before he could finish, Trent shoved Edgar's shoulder. The old man stumbled, barely catching himself on a nearby chair. "Get out," Trent snapped. Edgar straightened slowly. "There's no need to push." And that was when Trent lost control. His hand came up fast, striking Edgar across the face. The sound echoed. Edgar staggered back, his glasses falling to the floor. Silence swallowed the room. Someone gasped. A woman covered her mouth. A security guard took a step forward, unsure. Edgar didn't shout. He didn't fall. He simply stood there, stunned, his cheek red, his eyes glassy not from pain but from something deeper. Hurt, humiliation, memory. Trent scoffed. "That's what happens when you don't listen." For a moment Edgar said nothing. Then he bent down, slowly picked up his glasses, and wiped them with trembling hands. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but steady. "I helped build this place." Trent laughed. "Sure you did." Edgar looked around the showroom, at the walls, the ceiling, the floor. 37 years ago, he said. This was an empty lot. I was the structural engineer on the original build. I remember where every beam sits. I remember the names of the men who poured the foundation. A murmur spread through the room. Trent's smile faltered for half a second. "Security," he called out. "Get this man out." Before anyone moved, a voice came from behind. "That won't be necessary." The speaker was Margaret Whitmore, the silver-haired woman who had just entered through the private office doors. The owner of Whitmore Luxury Motors. The woman whose name was etched into the building itself. Her eyes were fixed on Edgar. "Is that you?" she asked, disbelief softening her voice. Edgar turned slowly, his face changed. "Margaret," he said, "it's been a long time." She crossed the floor quickly, ignoring everyone else. "My God," she whispered. Edgar Holloway. Trent's face went pale. Margaret turned to him sharply. "What happened here?" Trent stammered. He was causing a disturbance. He didn't belong." Margaret's eyes flashed. "He doesn't belong." She looked at Edgar's cheek, still red. "Who did this?" No one spoke. Edgar sighed. "It's all right, Margaret. I didn't come to cause trouble." She shook her head. "No," she said firmly. "You came to visit." She turned to the room. "This man is the reason this building still stands. When costs were cut, he refused to compromise safety. When investors pushed, he pushed back harder. He saved us millions and lives." The room was dead silent. Margaret faced Trent. "You slapped him?" Trent swallowed. I didn't know." "No," she interrupted coldly. "You didn't care." Edgar gently touched her arm. "Please," he said. "I only came because my granddaughter asked me to." Margaret softened again. "Is she well?" "She is," Edgar smiled faintly. "She just got her first promotion. I wanted to buy her a car, something safe." A few people wiped their eyes. Margaret turned to the staff. "Cancel my meetings." Then to Edgar. "Come with me." They walked together toward the office, Edgar moving carefully, Margaret matching his pace. Before disappearing through the doors, she stopped and looked back at Trent. "Pack your things," she said. "You're done here." Trent opened his mouth, but no words came out. An hour later, Edgar sat in the private lounge, a warm cup of tea in his hands. Margaret placed a folder on the table. "The car is on me," she said. Edgar shook his head. "I can pay, I know," she smiled, "but I want to." He looked around the room, then back at her. "You know," he said quietly, "when he slapped me, it wasn't the pain that hurt. It was being treated like I didn't matter." Margaret nodded. "People forget," she said, "until they're reminded." Edgar stood up slowly. "Thank you," he said, "not for the car, for the respect." As he walked out of the building later, that day, the same doors opening wide for him, every employee stood, not because they were told to, but because they understood, and the people who witnessed that slap would remember it forever, not as an act of cruelty, but as the moment arrogance collapsed, and dignity stood tall.